Okay, so in Farm Together 2, your main currency is coins. And what we're going to do in this video is go through how you can set your farm up to make a huge profit. And this profit actually comes in rather quick. It just depends on how much you spend after you've made that money. You see at the top right corner, I've currently got 8.4 million. And that is because I have just finished with the harvesting from the overnight crops. So you have different categories of things you can put on your farm to make money. You have the flowers, you've got fish, you've got animals, trees, and you've also got crops. So when it comes to these categories, every single one of them will eventually over time make money. But there are some things that are just a lot faster than others. So going into the flowers tab, if we press Z, we can actually see the stats on these flowers. So here, these damask roses, I have 50 planted, I've harvested 185, I've spent 107,500, and my money earned is 114,000. So I've harvested them quite a bit, and I've only made about 7 grand. And they do take 3 hours to grow. You can't water them to speed up their growth time. Basically, what watering does when it comes to flowers is keeps their trophy rating up, and then when you harvest them, they yield extra money than their base value. So at base, these are a 354 yield. It can go up to double, so you'll get around 700 if you keep their trophy rating high. That's why on almost every single flower, I have sprinklers so I don't need to do the watering manually, because something like the rose is going to need watering a lot. I would say for the first 8-10 hours worth of gameplay, Pete was just constantly back and forth, watering flowers over and over again. But if we look at the roses, it says I've planted 12, I own 18 because 6 of them I got through expansions. I've only ever spent 2,100 on roses, and I've earned 121,000 coins. But what you need to bear in mind is if you look at the top right, I'm farm level 85. I have a little over 40 hours in this game. But when it comes to the rest of the flowers, they're not that good. Yeah, the Romanas roses, they're decent, but again, it's 1 hour 15 minutes you have to wait, and you're going to need a lot of them. We had 74 of these planted at one time, and we harvested them over and over again as part of a quest, and just because we had them there, we kept them there, so we kept making money from them. But the flowers are just something that will naturally, over time, bring your money up because they stay planted after you've harvested them. And when it comes to the fish, we have almost every fish. We've just got to get the trout up to 16. And these fish are similar to the flowers because they are going to bring you in money over time. They stay there after you've harvested them, but they are very, very expensive as an upfront cost. So when it comes to the flowers, you've got things like, if we go back to here, you'll see that it's 5,300 per white Liberty Carnation. When it comes to the fish, it's a little bit more because it's 9,750 per bronze surgeon fish. So when it comes to fish, when it comes to flowers, and again when it comes to animals, you are going to need to be incredibly patient. They will bring you in money and make more than you spent on them over time. But on top of that, you have to feed the animals. So you then need to go and plant crops so that you can get their food, put their food down. If they run out, their time is going to stop. So animals are a little bit more stressful. And the developers have actually lowered the fish prices and increased the animal prices. So it's a little bit more balanced. When it comes to those, it's entirely up to you, but again, it's the same with the trees. These can get very expensive, being 9,500 each per Granny Smith apple tree. And some of these are just awful for your return, especially because when you've got things like coconut, you can only harvest them when it's the summer. So right now it's the summer, I can go and harvest these. They're going to make me a little bit of money. They're going to stay there, but then I have to wait like an hour or whatever it is after I've harvested them to do it again. So their money's going to come in over a much longer period of time. So the absolute best thing to make money in this game is going to be your crops. Your flowers, animals, trees, and fish are good, but they oftentimes have an expensive upfront cost, and they take a long time to bring that money back. But not only that, if you have a pond that is larger than 36 tiles, whether that's a fish on its own or fish combined together, after 36 tiles, that pond is going to net a penalty to your income. So they have to be like a maximum of 36 tiles each, which is what we have. For every single fish we have in the game, we have their ponds 36 tiles, and they're all separated. So when it comes to the crops that I would recommend are based on your sort of level. Because if we have a look and we go to something like the carrot, if we look at the stats, we've spent 411,000, we've earned 661, so that's a really good profit from those. They only take 15 minutes to grow, but if you look at the amount we've planted and harvested, it takes forever because they're so cheap. they are only going to cost you 30 coins and they take 15 minutes. They yield 68, so it's over double what you're spending, but because they're so cheap, you have to plant so many to bring in that profit. Whereas if we look at something like the pumpkin is going to take a day to grow, so it's rather long for its growth time, but you can put sprinklers down so you don't need to water them, and it halves that time, so that would be 12 hours, or you can manually water them if you don't have the sprinklers, and it's going to bring that time down anyway. But if we have a look at this, we've planted less than 2,000, and our profit sits at nearly 1 million coins. So what I recommend you do with the crops is, for the winter, you are going to plant Carolina potato, because that has a decent profit range. Because what you're doing with these is you're not going for, let's have a look, for an example, you would think here, acorn pumpkin, oh, it's nearly 1,000 coin profit each one. But that's not good. You're not going for its base profit, you're going for how much profit in percentage rather than the actual base. Because if you have a look here, we've planted and harvested nearly 500 of these, and our profit is only like 400 grand, a little over 400,000. So it's more the percentage. So I would actually say, even though it's going to take a lot longer to make that profit, I would say acorn pumpkin is a worse crop than your base carrots, because your base carrots are making over double, whereas your acorn pumpkin is just making 1,000 on top, and it's already like nearly 3,000 to buy them. So it's roughly like a 35% profit margin. So in the winter, I recommend your Carolina potatoes. And don't forget, with your crops, the higher their level, the better their yield. Their yield actually increases the higher you level them up. That's the same for everything in the game. When it comes to spring, I would say tomatoes are very good. And then in the summer and the autumn, it would have to be Lodge zucchini, because the longest you're going to spend with a crop is an hour, which can be brought down to half an hour with the tomatoes if you've got sprinklers. You've got something fast that's actually quite expensive as well. And in level 22, granted, the profit is only 82, but it's something you can just quickly stick in the ground. It's not going to take 1.5 days like the acorn pumpkin. So you're going to level it up a lot faster. You're going to be dealing with it a lot faster. You're going to bring in that profit quicker. However, because the Lodge zucchini is limited to summer and autumn, and the tomatoes are limited to spring and autumn, what you could do is just put Carolina potato down all year round, because you can harvest it every single season. And what you can do then is focus on leveling that potato up, and you're going to bring in more yield. So at the very start of the game, it would be something like your lettuce, even beets are good, and your carrots. As you get into the mid-game, I would go for the Carolina potato, I'd put down the Lodge zucchini, I'd put down the tomatoes. Tomatoes are really, really good. If we have a look at that, spent 391 grand, we've earned 667, and we've planted 3,000 of them. So you don't have to do mass plants, and you're going to make a very good amount of money. However, when you get to the later game, and you're doing more overnight farming and things like that, you're letting the game idle itself whilst you're asleep or something like that, I would recommend going for something like the albino eggplant, because it costs 3,000 to buy, it's 3,500 yield, and that is at base level 1, so that's going to increase every time you level it up. But other than that, I've already showed you the profit. It has to be the pumpkin. You can get this down to 12 hours, which is plenty of time whilst you're offline and stuff. And this profit is insane. We've spent 1.8 million on it. We've earned 2.7. However, when you start getting quests and you're leveling things up to unlock extra crops, even something like the Concord grape's going to do good. It's a 6-hour growth time. We've planted over like a little over 3,000 of them, and we've made a little over 1 million. So there's lots of different crops you can do, but in my opinion, the crops are by far the best in this game. The flowers, fish, animals, and trees are like season specific, or the flowers are on timers. You can't do anything to speed up their growth time. They're a big, big cost up front, and some of them take a really long time. It actually works out that the acorn pumpkin, showing 1 day 12 hours, is still faster than one of the flowers. One of the flowers has a 24-hour growth time, whereas if you halve the acorn pumpkin, that's only 18 hours. So while everything is good in this game, there's a reason I've got 8.4 million, and that's because I have been planting these specific things that are going to make you the best money. And you can obviously go for the crops that are really cheap, that like take 10 minutes like your lettuce, but you're going to need such big quantities, it's not worth it. I mean, the devs have made the fuel a lot better, so if you want to sit there constantly planting and harvesting, then absolutely go for it. You're going to make a lot of money. But I would definitely stick that Carolina potato in the ground. I'd look at the Lodge zucchini, the tomatoes, and other things like that. And you've basically got to, like, your aim is going to be your percentage of profit rather than the base profit itself. Because while something like your lettuce is well over double what you're spending, your pumpkin may only be around 50% profit, but it's more expensive, and because you don't need to plant as many, you're going to make that money quicker. So just plant it overnight, come on, mass harvest it, and then you're going to make a load of money. As you would have seen, made over $1 million from it, made over $1 million from grapes. But at the end of the day, it's obviously entirely up to you what you're planting. That's just some tips to make some money in Farm Together 2. And what we are going to do is leave that video there. Let me know your thoughts and stuff about this game in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you out. Thank you for watching.